Good evening, Dr. Rangarajan. It's a pleasure to have
Hi.
you with us this evening. For the viewers, Dr. Rangarajan and I come from the same school, Padma Seshadri Balabhavan, and then I followed him in medical college, also the Madras Medical College. He's a very eminent psychiatrist in Chennai, and I'm going to ask a few questions related to COVID and what havoc it is causing in society today. Welcome, Dr. Rangarajan.
Hi.
Um,
You've been a very busy guy.
Yeah. Things have been very hectic and doesn't look like it is coming down. The same plateau is continuing.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe another 2-3 months is what I think. The first question I want to ask you is: there is a lot of stress in the last few months. I would think intuitively that when there is lockdown, when you're working from home, things will be a lot easier, a lot less stressful. People will have more time at hand. But I find that people are very stressed out. Do you agree? And if so, why is that the case?
Yeah. See, stress basically is not about any particular issue. So, like if you've been working in your office, commute is a stress. Your cabin, whether the cabin is all right, is a stress. Your mates are a stress. The kind of boss you have there to meet every day is a stress, and so lots of things there. At the same time, you still have your what do you call it? Your water cooler time and the coffee breaks and the other breaks which you have where you socialize. They kind of offset that stress at work. Now here, number of these other commute stress, everything is removed. You're home. You don't even have to bother to wear proper clothes. I mean, I'm wearing proper clothes. Okay,
Oh,
this is not the only
I
one.
don't suspect that, Bala.
But people, it's enough if you have enough presentability on screen. So everything is easy. So, but then again, what happens? You're sitting at home, you're in the same place. This brilliant divide between personal space and professional space gets completely blurred. And so what happens is you're stuck there. You're either kind of working all the time. You're still at the same table, and then you're cutting vegetables all the time. And then you get up and you're back again at work, and then everything seems to happen in the same spot. And there's nobody to go out for a coffee with. I mean, there are people at home, but they're not really coffee time fun people, right? So you lose that particular socializing um, privilege. So you're sitting at home, and therefore, initially, it's all nice. It's novel. I mean, there are people who work from home a lot, and that's happened a lot over these past few years. But anyway, it's novel, it's nice, and after some time, the novelty fades. And then you start thinking as to why am I sitting at home? And then it comes up, okay, my God, there is this issue. And what happens? Lots of people have to take pay cuts. A lot of people are losing jobs. And sitting at home, you have to do lots more work at home and do your office work too. You got to look after your child. You got to share your screen space with your child's school screen space. One after another, things keep mounting. We can keep on adding, stuff to this, and therefore it mounts. At the bottom of it all is this horrible uncertainty, where you do not know where we are going. You do not know what is going to hit you. You do not know what is safe behavior. I mean, when the HIV epidemic came up, people knew what is safe behavior. It is very clear. It's easy to make people understand. But even then,
there's nothing else.
No, even then, say when it first came up in the hospital, when we had a guy who possibly was HIV positive, the nurses wouldn't even go into the room, and I had to actually sit in the bed and talk to him to convince the nurses nothing will happen. The nurse all but wiped my entire body with Dettol before she again spoke to me. But then, people were very confused. Okay, now we made people understand that, there are unsafe behaviors which can get you onto such things. And if you avoid such unsafe behaviors, you're not going to kind of get the HIV. But here, I mean, the most civilized behavior of shaking hands and hugging somebody and having a face-to-face talk with somebody, kissing the one you love, eating from the same plate. These are things which are supposed to be marks of affection, friendship, love, camaraderie. And these are the things which can give you the disease.
Right. And
So you're pushed into... Pardon?
You can die in a few days. That's always a fear.
Exactly. I can die in a few days because I kissed the wrong person. And frightening. It's really frightening. So people wonder what's happening. And it messes up lots of minds. And that uncertainty starts playing on people, wondering how long are we going to be this way? The so-called new normal. Is this really normal? Is this really new? And is this going to be here? We can all use funny jargon, new words, new phrases, catchy things. But the reality is, the world has changed from what we knew. Our life has changed from how it was some time ago. And we are stuck not knowing what to do. We have no control. And all the pundits, the brilliant ones, keep giving all kinds of advice. And there is no dearth of it,
Right.
Fantastic advices, right? I mean, sometimes the bigger advice gets swallowed up in the rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny. I mean, I once had somebody who actually said, I am not able to talk to you on the phone because they say that talking on the phone with somebody else can give you the virus. See, this person completely misunderstood the idea of sharing the mobile phone and the possibility of the other person's spit being on the phone and you kind of talking on the same phone. So don't touch somebody else's phone. And a whole rigmarole about phone hygiene, how to clean your phone, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had other situations where I spoke to somebody on an online call, and this person was actually sitting in the house alone, wearing a mask and talking to me on a video call. So you look at people kind of have these situations where they really don't know which is right, which is wrong, and how far to go. So this confusion is going to cause stress for everybody.
So what kind of mental illness do you come across often? Is it depression? Is it how does it manifest as in most situations?
Okay. If you look at it, apparently there has been one case where primary psychosis is the presenting feature of a COVID-19 infection. There have been a few cases where there have been confusional states, disorientation, etc. But these are very, very rare. What we see very often is the simplest level, an anxiety about what's happening. And don't know how to behave, don't know how to do things. I'm afraid to go home. And every time you go out, you're afraid. See, at the beginning of this all, I went to the US and came back. So I came back on the 10th of March. And it's not at all an exaggeration. For a month, I was sitting with a guilt that I could have brought the virus back home. Because I traveled. For a month, I was feeling guilty. I mean, nothing happened. I was not infected. I didn't have a problem. But I was thinking, I'm one of those potential people who could have actually brought the virus from somewhere else. I mean, I almost went near New York, and New York was hot at the time with lots of cases.
So you lose the rational thinking process because of the anxiety and fear.
Exactly. And I was feeling very guilty, and my anxiety level was going up, you see.
Right.
Even though I knew there was nothing else here, that I didn't bring anything in. But I could have brought the infection back. So that kind of a guilt, and always a feeling, today I'm going out. Would I have caught the infection from somebody? And having caught the infection, am I going to bring it back to my loved ones at home? See, this again creates more anxiety in people. And then there is this exactly opposite situation where people disbelieve this whole thing. You see pictures of people in the COVID ward singing and dancing and playing the shuttle and volleyball and all that. And I say, this is nothing at all. This is not at all a disease. And why are we all afraid of it? Why are you making me afraid of it? Why are you shutting me inside the house? Why are you not letting me go out and do my own thing? This kind of a
This is
flip
what is
side
happening
reaction.
in the US, isn't it? Most people
Yeah.
deny there is a problem at all.
No,
But
here people accept there is a problem, but they think it's been overplayed. It's after all another cold, just like a cold. And that's what people say. People don't understand it's not just like a cold for everybody.
right.
You know?
See, this you've raised this concept of fear. And yes, we see a lot of phobia about COVID. On one hand, we see cases who have been diagnosed as COVID, hang themselves in hospital wards or jump off the hospital buildings when they are diagnosed. We also see people petrified and, totally shattered about COVID. But as you said, on the other hand, we see a lot of people out without wearing masks. In other words, this phobia and this behavioral activities are totally a sort of a paradox. So is it just there are two different kinds of people, or the same person may go through phases? How do you explain that?
I mean, both are possible. You basically have two different kinds of people. There are some people who are very anxious about every little thing on the surface of the earth, and there are some people who claim to be absolutely fear free. I mean, in the way I would look at it, somebody is fear free is basically stupid. If you have some intelligence, you will have some fear for some things. And somebody who is so-called fearless, I would say best is they're ill-informed, uninformed. They don't know, and therefore they are not afraid. As long as I don't know what a tiger can do to me, I have no problem putting my hand into the tiger's mouth.
Right.
I mean, if I don't know, this is the first time I'm seeing a tiger. What else would I do?
Right.
So they don't know what it is. And I guess somewhere the message has gotten mixed up with various other issues, your nationality, your patriotism, your economy, all those things, politics, everything's gotten mixed up with a very simple health advisory. That's where I think people got confused. Everybody says their own thing. And ultimately, the common man decides, let me live life the way I want to live.
Right.
I mean, it is difficult. And the same person who's been very, very cautious for a very long time might suddenly say, enough is enough. I've lost my patience. So the tenacity, they don't have the tenacity to hang on and until they see the end of it all, isn't it?
Right.
So that is something. So different kinds of people, different kinds of reactions to begin with. And again, people can lose their faith in whatever they've been doing. When you read some reports that Mr. X has never stepped out of the house, has always stayed within the house, hasn't met anybody, and he died of COVID.
Right.
I mean, how is that possible? Isn't it? It's
some breach in the,
the so-called, the so-called fortress which this person has built has not been as clean as he believed. There has been some breach. Without a breach, it's impossible, isn't it? I mean, the way I understand, I'm sure you understand better, it is something which can be given from one person to another.
Right.
If there is the first person doesn't have it, the second person is not going to get it.
Correct.
Yeah. Basic thing is that.
So if he hasn't stepped out, somebody has come in and given it to him without being aware that that person is infected.
Without being aware. So, but when you give a message saying nobody has come in and yet this person has got it.
Right.
Then you would say, hey, so what's the big deal in staying inside? I can as well go out and brave it. Why should I be stuck in this jail which I've created? So it confuses people. So the clarity in information, I think lots of people get info from various sources, not all of them authentic. Right. And unfortunately, the authentic sources aren't loud enough.
Right. So how do you detect when somebody goes through these phases, these confusions and thoughts? As you said, some of them may be slightly, outside the normal, but it is not totally abnormal, and they can carry on life with that. But there are some people who may be going to an area which needs medical help. So how do you identify the symptoms, or how, either in my family or my friends, what kind of symptoms would alert you to the fact that yes, they probably need medical or psychological help?
Okay. So if you're facing some stress, the logic is you're going to have an acute stress reaction. The acute stress reaction usually will be sweating, palpitations, physical aches and pains, one sense of breathlessness, tremors, not able to concentrate, feeling worried all the time. Lots of physical symptoms like diarrhea, maybe allergic reactions, maybe wheezing, things like that. These are all going to happen as an acute stress reaction. Now, with an acute stress reaction, if you're reassured with talking to, say, some expert, some close friend, and you share your feelings and somebody helps you cope and you get this support, it goes away. Now, this progresses on to a little bit more serious situation where they're unable to adjust to this stress. When they're not able to adjust to the stress, it starts showing up in different behaviors. Simple thing, can't sleep, can't eat, always feeling anxious, can't focus on what you want to do, mind is distracted, vague body aches which become worse, irritability, anger, crying spells, a sense of, these are things which might be at the next level. And then some people can go into a more serious depressive things where there is a very strong sense of despair, hopelessness, and a constant fear that I can catch it. And if I've caught it, that's it, end of story, which explains why some people, they believe that having caught the COVID, that's it, that's the end of my life. And so why should I suffer? Let me die, I can't take this. And maybe I look like a failure in front of my friends. All of them have been very cautious. All of them have been very successful in avoiding the COVID. And I, like a fool, have got it.
I hadn't thought of those, thinking in those lines. But I think you have made a very good point there. People tend to.
So I've been the stupid guy here when everybody else is smart. And I failed. I failed this society. I failed my family. I've got this, and therefore I don't deserve to be around. And before I infect another person, let me die is another thing. People can think in so many ways. If you go on trying to read people's minds here, because we don't have their minds to read anymore, they're dead. You can think of all possible angles they've gone through. So
the other issue, again, right at this point is, which is apt, is the issue of stigmatization, in the sense that people are subject to a lot of stigma, and people sometimes feel ostracized when either the thought of whether they could be having or they've been confirmed to have. How do you think, we can face that or get over this problem?
Okay, see, every culture has got a way of handling any crisis. Okay, so if I kind of stick with our culture, the Indian culture, okay? In the Indian culture, the virus infection, the age-old virus infection, smallpox, is goddess Mariamma, right? Amman. So the virus is thought of as a god by the common man. Yeah, the culture says that. And I understand there have been Corona Devi temples which have sprung up in various parts of the country.
Right.
Okay, so you have a Devi, because it's a very powerful virus. So basically we think somebody powerful than me must be God. Okay, so God has come in the form of virus. There are people who have said this is the Kalki avatar.
Right.
All kinds of beliefs. So it's Corona Devi, Amma, Mariamman, Kalki avatar, some retribution to this horrible planet which has been very, very, bad, has destroyed the whole world, ecosystem is gone, and therefore nature is taking revenge on you, gods have come down on you. So there is this strong kind of belief, and culture gets frightened. And God is too big for you to fight with. So you can't fight God. And what do? You fold your hands, worship, and stay. They have in the past kind of, okay, what do you do when there is a pox in somebody's house? you immediately hang a bunch of neem leaves outside so that nobody else comes inside. There's an immediate announcement. So that person is isolated, and therefore the next person doesn't get the infection. So here also, people have been asked to isolate. Now, this isolation, if you look at something, we worked in this culture to end various forms of ostracization, such as untouchability. Where we don't isolate people, we socialize people of various classes, cultures, castes, religion. I mean, this country has worked for many decades to get rid of these differences and come together. And now I suddenly say, no, nobody can touch you.
Right.
Somebody comes into my house, no, don't come in. Somebody sits in your chair, you want to wipe the chair. I mean, these are all things which people did when there was untouchability.
Right.
You have the paraya, the bad word, come into your house, then immediately there is some cleansing ritual which happens. We have a non-Hindu entering a temple. There is a whole big, ritual which goes through, which people go through. So
Right.
we've all come to kind of, get this ostracizing nature back in our culture, because we've all tried to fight it. We've tried to move away from this. And now, this whole culture now has come back to what it was earlier. Somebody says, this is why our ancient forefathers said, you should do this, you should not touch. This is why they said you should wash and come. This is why he said they should sprinkle some holy stuff around you.
Right.
So we've gone back to that belief, and we think maybe we got to do this new form of untouchability. I can't touch you because you can give me the virus. And if you've definitely got the virus, man, you are the untouchable now, the new untouchable. So people start moving like that. And this person who gets the virus starts thinking of himself as untouchable. He wants to keep away. So
Right.
initially, logic says, okay, I've got the virus, so let me just isolate myself and so that I don't give it to anybody. And then I sit alone in my room and I wonder, and I've become this untouchable. Nobody's there with me. Nobody wants to meet me. Nobody wants to see me. I had a good friend of mine, a senior doctor, who was admitted, and he said, none of my colleagues have come to see me. I'm admitted to this hospital with COVID, but none of my colleagues from the same hospital have come to see me.
Right.
They are afraid to even enter my room. See, this sense of I'm being different.
Right.
It leads to the culture also kind of moving you to thinking you are the untouchable, and therefore the stigma follows. So whether I create the stigma for myself or my society around me stigmatizes me and pushes me aside, either which way, I get isolated and nobody wants to come. Even some funny comedy about a woman not even climbing up the stairs to give a man food. She throws balls of food up the stairs. It all leads to people kind of
The culture
adding on to the stigma.
plays a role in sort of encouraging this also, because we are used to something, and when we are trying to move away, we are again being pulled back to that.
Exactly.
Interesting. But one thing I see a lot of patients who I know have issues with, depression or isolation or difficulty in handling things. But whenever I recommend, they probably need to see a psychiatrist, or to put it more, eloquently, a therapist. A lot of them are not keen to do so. They feel that going to a psychiatrist or expressing the fact that they are not able to handle the stress is something which is not something acceptable.
Again, it's not acceptable. Or perhaps the psychiatrists have been the original pariahs in the medical community.
Yeah, they refuse. They say no. So how do you get them to seek help?
Yeah, the thing is, the first thing, the referring doctor should be sensitive about it. Kind of saying, what, you're fine, you're good, you're great, lovely, but it looks like it's getting to you and you are not able to relax. You're not your usual smiling self. Everybody in your house says you're different from before. That you sometimes you are not able to relax. You're not able to sleep. You see the discomfort. Maybe there is a way of handling this discomfort, and maybe you want to look at it, talk to somebody. There may be some way of coping with this. And that kind of a very gentle statement where the patient, understands that you are referring somebody not out of some despair that you cannot handle this case, or one kind of disgust. This guy is, not all right in the mind, but you're sensitive. Your idea of referring somebody is that you want to help your patient, and you're telling your patient, you're still my patient. I just want you to talk to somebody, and whatever treatment plan we will discuss, that doctor I'm referring you to will talk to me, and I am still your treating doctor. So I am not giving up on you. Something like that,
Right.
which makes the person feel more comfortable that this familiar doctor whom I know and I trust is not ostracizing me.
Right. Right. A better way to
Yeah.
put them across to somebody who may be able to help better. Right.
And what happens is sooner or later, once they are able to understand the discomfort and that there is some way of handling the discomfort, people do come in and see a psychiatrist. It's not like how it was, say, some 20 years ago. People are willing to look at their mental health and want to kind of be mentally more healthy. They all understand the concept of stress and mood disturbances and anxiety.
Right.
So people do come in. It's not.
Lastly, what would be your tips for mental well-being during these times of stress and uncertainty? What would you say if I need to say, to give us 4 or 5 points which you feel are very important to keep your sanity and, be positive?
Yeah. First thing is stop looking at the scorecard every day.
Perfect. Nail on the head. That's very true.
I think that's the first thing. It's too much being put on the papers. And every day there is a mention of one VIP getting the illness, one VIP recovering, and one VIP dying. And it's not necessary. It's not necessary at all. I think this is something our media should look at. There's no need to portray all these things and have this daily counts. The daily counts are necessary for the public health people, and they need to handle. They need to really understand the counts and the stats and to handle the whole problem. An average man, just because the number of cases in the city came down less than 1,000, people started saying, "Oh, good, we have breached a figure." Makes no sense. What is the big difference between 955 and 1,021? Nothing. But because it's come below 1,000 and they're all looking at the scorecard, that's one thing. So stop looking at the scorecard and trying to see what's happening here. It is bad. Understand it's a bad infection. Not that everybody is going to be hit terribly by it, but it catches you quickly, and you may be in that small percentage which can be very badly hit by this. Accept the reality and accept what are the basic ways of handling this. Safety, isolation, mask, hand wash, distancing, avoiding crowds. Whether it's your temple or a bar, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Crowd. If there is nobody else in the bar and you alone are drinking, well, you're not going to catch it from anybody. So drinking itself is not going to give you the virus. And you going to a temple and praying to God all alone, fine. But if there are 100 other people praying at the same time, with all due respect to religion, God, everything, God is not going to stop you from catching the sneeze of the guy who's standing next to you.
Well said, well said.
So it doesn't matter where. So understand that. It's some simple, basic etiquette I think we should understand. Corona etiquette, we call it maybe. Something to do with that. Beyond that, tenacity, wait and wait. See how much you can conserve on whatever you have. There are lots of people who lost their livelihood. can't even find a day's meal. And there are people who have lost their daily drink. That's all. Which is worse, I don't know. But people are suffering in different ways. And how much of tenacity you have to wait and hold on and support each other. Whatever you can, help, share, understand that we are all in the same thing. I mean, I have a, say, tender coconut seller who comes out in my streets and he says, sir, I have the strength and I have the ability to go out and get the tender coconut and sell it every day in the street, but nobody wants to buy. This is a guy who is willing to work. And there must be a way of buying the tender coconut from him, sanitizing it, and then drinking it.
Right.
It doesn't mean just because this is a man on the street, he is going to give you Corona along with the tender coconut he sells. So you admire these people and perhaps support these guys who are doing it. All the same, I tell the guy to wear a mask. Just because you want to support this guy doesn't mean that you got to take the tender coconut water straight from him and break it in front of him and drink it straight away. I mean, you can do whatever you want. I mean, I actually washed it with soap and water, plain dried it, and then broke open the shell and then had the tender coconut water, which I felt I was doing something to satisfy my fear.
Right.
And to kind of balance my need to support this man who's selling the tender coconut. I mean, he wouldn't just take money from me because he is selling and he wants to make a sale. He doesn't want charity from me. Respect such people,
I think you have given us a lot of perspectives of how something can be looked at from various ways. It was very interesting. I just hope that we get over this uncertainty soon and, we are able to carry on with whether it's a new normal or whatever, a little more.
If I can just say one thing, forget that word soon. Let's not put any timeline because we don't know timelines. Let us say we'll all work towards getting over this at some point in time. And until that time comes, let's be tough and hold on.
Excellent. I think resilience and discipline are probably the only things which are going to keep us all safe. Thank you very much, Dr. Rangarajan.
Okay.
It was very, very
Most welcome,
nice
Doctor.
talking to you, and I learned a lot of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ramasubramanian. I've learned a lot from you all the time. Thank you. I could teach you some little thing. Hey. Thank you very much. And it's been my pleasure. Bye.